You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, home of the 2-hour deep dive interview with gold, platinum, and multi-platinum bands, including Stained, Blue Rodeo, The Arkells, Finger 11, Big Wreck, Moist, Bedouin Soundclash, I Mother Earth, Ill Scarlet, Neverending White Lights, Thornley, and many more. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast as well as share, comment, and like. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the drummer for my all-time favorite band, Wintersleep. Right here, I got a vintage shirt on. He's also the drummer for Contrived. And since last summer, he's been on tour drumming for the multi-platinum band, Billy Talent. So welcome to the podcast, Loel Campbell. Loel, how are you and how good does it feel to be working on new music with your solo project, Early Works?
It's great. Yeah, it's nice to have time at home to kind of touch up on all these ideas that I've had the past couple of years. Because last year was a lot of touring. So yeah, it's nice. I'm using the time wisely.
That's awesome. Yeah, I assume life has been pretty busy since last summer. The Billy Talent tour that's quite an undertaking.
Yeah, it was, a lot of shows, a lot of big shows. They have quite a following.
Yeah, and not just Canada. I mean, there's massive shows around the world.
Yeah. The European festivals and all that were pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, so we'll dive into some of the live stuff with Billy Talent as we go. We'll dive into the new solo stuff with Early Works. And I like to start by sharing with our listeners how the guests and I know each other. So it shows kind of the importance of networking and building community and relationships. So in our case, you probably don't even know this, but this goes all the way back for me to 2004. So I went to school in London, Ontario for audio engineering. I was 18 years old. And for some reason in a course where there was, I don't know, 50 people, my four best friends were all from the East Coast. And all four of these guys in 2004 were ranting and raving about this Wintersleep band. And there was this song Orca that was like taking over the radio there. So they went on and on about Wintersleep. At that point, you just had the debut album out. So that was my introduction to Wintersleep. And then, I became in the loop. So when the next Untitled album comes out, I'm ready for it. Over the years, I've probably seen you guys 15 times live. So I'm like a lifelong fan since 2004. So that's the beginning for me. And I ended up, meeting you. I was at so many shows that every now and then I'd run into you and just say, hey, and you go, Oh man, you look familiar. And it was just that random guy that's at every show. Anytime you were in London, Toronto, Ottawa, or Montreal, I would catch those shows. So we go that far back, and I have some stories that I'll share later on as we go that are pretty funny and memorable.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. So people look at you now, they see the success you've had with Wintersleep and Contrived. They see you on stage playing arenas or stadiums or festivals with Billy Talent. They see somebody that's achieved a level of mastery. And I like to take it all the way back to the beginning to, the first time you played a drum kit. So people can see that you're not born as this great drummer, that there was a dream there.
Definitely not.
There was hard work, there was lessons, there was struggle. So let's go back to the beginning. Where did this love of music come from? Do you have like an earliest musical memory that jumps out at you?
I remember being in my living room of the house that I grew up in, and my dad would play me records. Like he had a small vinyl collection, so I remember him playing me he was really excited to show me the beginning of a Bonnie M record where it morphs into Rasputin, and it's like this countdown. It's very it's really impressive. Like it's like this kind of countdown to a space liftoff, and that stuck into my head, and just like kind of that song just kind of ramps up in tempo, and it's a really drum heavy song. That's probably my first memory of something like hitting me like kind of like as an emotional thing. Other than that, I mean, I was just like exposed to a lot of music. My older brother brought a lot of music home, so he kind of kept me up to date with what was what was happening. I guess in like alternative music, like he'd bring home like like Beck, like Mellow Gold, and I think I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" like on a dub tape. Like I think I heard it on like a Weird Al, like the Weird Al version before I heard the actual
Yeah.
version. We just had tons of like dubbed mixtapes that were shared amongst his friends and stuff like that.
So Nirvana, Nevermind, and Beck, Mellow Gold. So that's between like 91 and 94, I guess that those were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots of music coming into the house through my brother.
So you're young, you're absorbing music. Music
Mm.
seems to be something cool. It's starting to mean a little bit to you. Where does the actual playing of drums come in? Because it's two different things, enjoying music, and not all people that enjoy music end up picking up an instrument.
Yeah, I think I was like really enamored by the conversation that you could have through music, like even just sharing songs, like, oh, I would get so excited when my brother would want to show me something that he was into, and I like was immediately like open and like felt like he was communicating in a way to me, sharing something with me. So I think it had that kind of deep kind of uh communicative emotional quality to it, like just music in general, and with my dad playing me stuff. And so I kind of like was interested that my sister played guitar. She was taking guitar lessons, and there was a guitar around the house, so it was always kind of daunting because like, where do you start? Obviously there was no YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. Uh so yeah, I picked up the guitar first, and kind of quickly became obsessed with that, and played that for years until I didn't get into drumming until quite a few years later, actually. Just kind of like out of necessity, because there was not really any drummers that could really kind of hold it down, I guess, in my small town. So there was a couple, but like there was, if you're gonna have a strong band, you need a solid drummer for sure. So that's kind of why I gravitated towards that role.
It sounds like between your sister, your brother, you, and your dad, you guys could have like a family band going on here.
Yeah, oddly enough, I'm the only one that uh kind of stuck with any sort of instrument. Apparently my grandmother was a really mean banjo player, but so maybe that's where I get a bit of rhythm. But
She could have been your secret weapon in the family band. Everyone loves a good
yeah,
banjo player.
yeah, 100%. I would have loved to have witnessed that.
And do you remember getting your first drum kit? Are you young enough that this is like a request for Christmas or a birthday? Is it you old enough that you saved up a bit and started buying a kit, or?
It was kind of out of desperation, honestly. Like I was just trying to convince my parents to let me have a drum kit, because as soon as I started kind of taking over the role at other people's houses and stuff around the neighborhood, where we'd be rehearsing or just messing around, I just I just knew that I needed to get better at this. So I just needed to put immediately spending all my time in it. I was just a strong obsession. So, but there was some resistance there to get a drum kit. So, yeah, there was a lot of begging and pleading that happened, and then finally I got that drum kit. I got like a used Westbury drum kit for dirt cheap. I don't think I could make much. I could probably, yeah, it's very nondescript drum kit, just kind of rickety. Uh, it might have some, but at the time it was just something to hit.
I can understand your parents' apprehension because having a kid with a drum kit, that's like the most loving thing a parent can do, because the kid doesn't start as a great drummer. So it's just a
Oh
lot of
no.
noise and like loud noise for years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I kind of realized that at the time, like I was very selective about when I chose to, like, I would get off of school at 3 and I would just beeline it home to the house as fast as I could, because I had this window, this 2 hour window between 3 and 5 that I could, you know, go nuts. I mean, I caught, and the digital drum kits weren't as popular then. They weren't really as good as they are today. So that just wasn't an option. And I don't know, there's something about the sound of like wide open drums, like I didn't know anything about muting or anything back then, but just something about the feel, and that only kind of comes from beating the hell out of the things for X amount of time until you kind of unlock your first thing or whatever.
Those 2 hours where you rushed home and you had time to drum before your parents got home, those were like the holy hours, right? That's like
Oh
where
yeah.
you built your skill up. And which drummers were your biggest influences back then? So I there's the maybe the grunge influence with the Nirvana stuff around that
Yeah.
time. Who are your influences?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dave Grohl, I was always interested in like Levon Helm. Like even at that time, I didn't even really know a sense of like, like the kind of makeup of different bands. Like I remember having like the Steve Miller greatest hits and like being enamored by those songs and kind of how tasteful those grooves are. And like I had House of the Holy by Led Zeppelin that was played just like, and we didn't really have, everything was on like dubbed mixtapes, like, so I wasn't at that when I was just starting out. So yeah, I gravitated towards stuff with like powerful drumming often, but also I don't know, I was just kind of obsessed with like lots of different music. I got into like hip hop music and stuff like that, and just kind of general production stuff, like just stuff that I thought had a good palette and tastefulness, and I grabbed from anywhere that I could really. But yeah, even like from Nirvana into like Foo Fighters, I was a big Foo Fighters fan for the first couple of records, and tried to play everything from those records like as well as I could, and that was a good workout. And this band Refused, this
They're a bit heavier.
oh yeah, they're Swedish, and they had this album called Shape of Punk to Come that I was really obsessed with. And we did a lot of covers of like Tool, and I was really into Deftones. Like Abe Cunningham was a big, he was a big influence on me at that time too. I was just like, you're just grabbing from everything that is somewhat palatable. I mean, there was a lot of music back then that was kind of like in the mix that I would listen to, that I probably, that I won't go back to. There's obviously a lot of staples of that I you know, would deem as classics to me, but that I still go back to. But you're just absorbing, and being in a small town, it was kind of limited about selection. That just it was just basically stuff that you picked up on the radio, and I wasn't even aware of like great programs like the CBC's Brave New Waves and stuff like that. I wasn't exposed to that until much later, but it's just like Much Music and local radio. That's kind of that. And sometimes, like I said, my brother would bring stuff home kind of off the beaten track, but not nothing like too out there, because it was like, Beck was on Much Music and stuff. But yeah, so it's
So
just
if you're doing Tool covers back then, you must have already been pretty good, because it's not easy to play Danny Carey drums.
yeah, that was a few years later. Yeah, I don't know. I think that it was in grade 11 that we were doing that stuff, and it was, yeah, it kind of at that time I was getting more comfortable, and we did a lot of covers. We actually covered a band from Hamilton who he played bass in Wintersleep, Chris Bell, his band Chore, Chore. we did a ton of covers of his band. We were obsessed with that band. So yeah, that's yeah. I cut my teeth like learning a lot of the cover songs and stuff like that.
That's kind of a full circle moment from you covering his band to him being in Wintersleep.
For sure, yeah. He was actually our sound engineer and tour manager for years. And yeah, it was yeah, he's a great musician, great songwriter, and yeah, he played on our last album.
You mentioned the Deftones,
Mm.
loving the drummer and loving the band. A few episodes ago, I had Papa Roach's original drummer, Dave Buckner, on, and he talked about when Papa Roach first started, these guys are like in high school, that it was around the time of the Deftones, even before they had released their debut Adrenaline, which I think is like 95, 96.
Yeah,
Papa Roach was in the local scene, and the local heroes were Deftones before they were signed to a major label. So we
yeah.
got some kind of insider information about the Deftones coming up through that Papa Roach interview, which was cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
are they from Sacramento as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
There was a
yeah,
whole scene there. There was like Head PE, there was
right.
Papa Roach, there was Alien Ant Farm, there was Deftones. There's this whole like group of bands, and it's like
Yeah,
Deftones were the pioneers that made it first, and that's like 95, 96, and then you start
yeah,
having Papa
yeah,
Roach like 99, 2000, and they were just
yeah.
behind them.
I remember that whole scene. There was a band maybe from around there called Dredge.
Oh, I
Uh,
used to love them. I saw them in
yeah,
Ottawa, Taste of Chaos in like 2003. I saw Dredge with
amazing. Yeah,
Deftones headlining actually. So
yeah.
that's
I
funny.
felt like they were in the same scene. Dredge was a little bit more muso, kind of more expansive, kind of experimental. But I felt like they were in the same scene. I remember being into this band called Swift, I think, as well. It was kind of in that scene. I was just such a sponge for as much of stuff as I could get my hands on that revolved around that stratosphere in particular.
So as a kid, before you really got into music and got passionate about music, was there anything that you wanted to be when you grew up?
I think that shifted. I mean, I think I was like into like maybe I was had like interested in firefighters and stuff, at a very young age, typical kid stuff. But I became like really interested in like design and kind of like web design, building websites and stuff like that at a very early age, like grade 6 or grade 7. And I spent a lot of time learning like code and teaching myself how to use Photoshop and stuff like that for years. And I was okay at it, but I actually went to college for like design. And but when we started touring a bit and that, I just kind of I don't think MacBooks were really that prevalent at the time. I think it was like early 2000s, and so I had like a big gap of not being able to keep my chops up with web design and like graphic design. So music just kind of swallowed everything.
Yeah, firefighter is actually the most popular answer I've been getting. I know
Yeah.
Julian Taylor from Staggered Crossing said firefighter, and there's been 2 or 3 since then as well. So that seems to be like the go-to. Those are like the heroes when you're a kid.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's a noble thing. It's yeah, yeah. It's just such a fascinating thing at that time.
And if I met you at 12 years old, who am I meeting? What is Loel Campbell like at 12 years old?
I think at 12 I was still pretty shy, shy kid. I probably would have tried to connect. I thought, I was probably pretty into music. Like that was probably my focal point, or like probably would probably try to ask you what kind of music you liked and go from there.
So to follow up, so that was at 12 years old. So now at 16, let's say you and I are friends at 16. You invite me over to your place to listen to music. What albums do
Yeah.
you think you'd be spinning for me?
Probably I was probably playing like Dr. Dre Chronic 2001 a lot then. probably a lot of hip hop, probably still a lot of Refused, Faith No More. I don't know, like yeah, a lot of Slayer, Sepultura, a lot of heavy stuff, just kind of like intense, kind of, of that age, kind of like people that were kind of making music that the way, expressing themselves the way I was feeling, probably at that age, typical kind of angst-ridden teenage stuff. But
And
yeah, so I probably would have played you a bunch of that.
okay, and before Wintersleep takes off, did you have any non-musical jobs? Are there any that stand out as funny or memorable or atrocious? Any
Yeah,
jobs?
I mean, I worked for my family at a very young age, just doing like data entry, and my dad had a gas station. I pumped gas for a while, and then I started mowing lawns in the summer. That was pretty long season actually. But through school, I did like I did like a co-op program in school. So I worked at like a computer repair place for one semester. And that was super fun. And then right out of high school, I worked Nova Scotia Youth Conservation Corps. It's like I had a job at actually like a bale fill facility, like a compost site. So that's what I did right out of high school. And then after college, I worked at a call center for couple years, and I delivered pizzas in Halifax too. I
Okay,
think
you've
that's
paid your
about
dues. You've paid your dues
it.
before becoming a musician.
Yeah.
That's funny. And how early on did you know you had something special to offer as a drummer and as a musician that, hey, maybe if I actually was serious about this, if I was perseverant, I could, this could be a career for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of my friends, would come and go with playing music. Like it was kind of more something that they could put down, and but for me, it was just kind of like I was just kind of just really driven to keep getting better, and for some reason I knew that if I kept working at it, I could keep unlocking. Um, my skill set, developing my skill set. And yeah, I don't know. Like it was kind of this blind faith of and getting drawn towards like-minded people, like meeting my friend Brian Borchard, who played in a band called Burnt Black back then. That was a big deal for me and all my friends. They were from Yarmouth, and they were playing heavy music like down-tuned, kind of in the same kind of ilk as Deftones and stuff like that. And I was just, that blew my mind that there was a band from Nova Scotia that was making music that was like, that I loved. So I actually reached out and got in touch with him, and yeah, I don't know, just kind of, yeah, just trying to make connections, just find people that wanted to do the same thing that I was doing, and just kind of like forging a path, I guess, because you need people to do that. You can't just like get really good at drums and I mean, maybe you could start a YouTube channel now and have a ton of
Yeah,
followers, but
times have changed. Yeah.
yeah, but at that time you had to make those connections, yeah. So I just kept running and making friends with people that were kind of had the same interest, and wanted to make like their own music and write their own music.
So musicians are often told to, get a good job, get a good education, get a good job, play it safe. Being a full-time musician, this is a pipe dream. This is just a hobby. Did you ever deal with that level of resistance from family and friends? I know there was resistance in getting the original drum kit. That's more of just like a noise thing more than anything. But
Yeah.
family and friends, any resistance for you pursuing this seriously?
I think there was some concern probably initially, but I remember my parents coming to the release party. Like we used to have CD release parties back then. They came to the first the self-titled Wintersleep album the CD release for that here, and they were kind of like, they got it after that. And they were just super supportive. They're still are. Um, um, Super supportive. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you definitely get that. You go through, I mean, there's lots of peaks and valleys on the journey of an artist, I guess, so you just try to gravitate towards the positives, and there's obviously, you get those questions around, at a family gathering or stuff, or, the classic, are you still doing the music question? uh, but no, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have a very supportive family, and they see, that this is, it coexists with my existence, I guess. So yeah, so I'm really, really lucky to have such a wonderful family. It gets me.
That's awesome. So let's dive into Wintersleep.
Mhm.
And I wanted to kick off this section powerfully. So I reached out and I got some kind words from a fellow Wintersleep band member. This is from John Samuel. So for the listeners, he's keys, backing vocals, and guitar with Wintersleep. This is what John Samuel has to say about one Loel Campbell. He says, Loel is a shepherd of songs because at his core, he's a songwriter and a lover of a good song. It's what makes him a good drummer, a good musician, and best of all, a great musical mind. These days, I pride myself on breaking songs down to their bare essentials. Lowell has the never ending foresight to see these simple ideas through. He keeps the basic interesting and musical. So that's John Samuel from Wintersleep.
Oh wow, that's really, really, really thoughtful comment. That's really nice to hear. Thanks, Joe.
There you go, your boy John. How did the band members meet and for Wintersleep, and where did the idea of maybe starting a band together come from?
We met, well, Brian Borchard, who I mentioned, he was from Yarmouth, and he was releasing his own music through this label called Dependent Music. And I was just, super excited by that idea. So I got involved in helping with make the website and stuff for that, and kind of the online community. We had like message boards back then, and they were kind of populated by people from my area, Pictou County and Yarmouth. And yeah, and Tim and Paul's band Carrie was part of the Dependent thing. So I started talking to Tim like on the internet, like when he's a few years older than me, but yeah, I got in touch with Tim through Brian, and we started sharing music, like stuff that I was working on, and he would send me Carrie stuff, and just like, we just toss around like guitar ideas or whatever, and just, it just kind of immediately in this musical conversation. And I met Paul through Tim, uh, and I met them. They snuck me into they had like a show New Year's Day here in Halifax where it was Carrie and Burnt Black. And that's when I met Tim and Paul for the first time. I was 15 years old, so I got snuck into this bar. And
Did you have a beard already? Did you look of age?
no, I couldn't grow a beard then. I don't think I could grow a beard until I was like 21 or something. That filled out. So no, I was like, I was tall though. I had
That
just
helps.
I had just kind of gone through my last yeah. So I was, I was aware. It was kind of like I'd gotten into some bars around my hometown before that. And I was just so excited to see these bands because I was such a huge fan of them. And yeah, met them, and then I graduated the year after. And yeah, I don't know, I was kind of already in you know in a lot of conversations with Tim especially, and Paul too. And as soon as I moved to Halifax, I had an apartment, kind of like a dorm room that I shared with four of my friends from Stellarton. And I was fortunate to get like this big room in it, and it was in a really like a 30-story building. And it was a concrete structure, so the walls were like really not soundproof, but like I could get away with having a drum kit in my room. So that was kind of started out as like a place to facilitate some choir music. At least like we couldn't Contrived was very loud and like everything's on 11. But Paul, me and Paul connected because yeah, we just wanted to try something a bit lighter. Anyways, a lot of the stuff that he had at that time was, like just kind of suited, kind of like how that first Wintersleep record sounds. It's just kind of more sparse and just everything's just kind of like has this lighter approach for the most part, outside of like Orca and like the outro of Avalanche or something like that. It's pretty guitar driven and like acoustic guitar driven, and just with like, so we were just trying to experiment with like a softer touch, and like we were influenced by bands like Low and like some of that slowcore kind of stuff, and like we were really into Hayden then too, and kind of like the way he approached just production, I guess, not necessarily songwriting, but yeah. So that's, and then Tim started coming over and making up parts for guitar parts in addition to the kind of fundamentals that we had established already, and yeah, it's just kind of like just super gradual kind of kind of unexpected kind of progression. It was very organic. Just kind of snowballed.
I've always wanted to know the meaning behind the name Wintersleep. So to me, and maybe it's a magician isn't allowed to say his tricks or whatever, but I have to ask. For me, it's like I think of maybe the winters in the East Coast, like it's so cold you just want to hibernate. That's always just been my random thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember how Wintersleep comes together as a band name, or if there's a meaning behind that? Or
Paul had the name because it was like, it's basically the German translation of hibernation, Winterschlaf. And he was versed in German then. He was taking German classes and his girlfriend was German. So I don't know. He was just kind of, and it really fit because we were just kind of like hunkering down in like a cozy kind of space. And I think them, like Tim and Paul from Yarmouth and I'm from New Glasgow area, we kind of had a similar existence of this kind of like the winter being kind of like a creative time, a time that you could kind of spend trying to not be bored. So to do something creative, so I think we all shared that kind of upbringing of just being from small towns where not a lot was going on, so you had to make your own fun, just kind of, which is pretty awesome thing to figure out, really, that to know that you're kind of to kind of have a straight shot to knowing that you're a creative person. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's where the name comes from, though, is Paul had it, and the last song on one of the Carey records was actually called Hibernation, their record The Sound of Beauty Breathing. So it all kind of tied in somewhat to yeah, just kind of this evolution, this kind of, because Carey was super heavy and Contrived is super heavy, and yeah, just kind of this this detachment from this kind of other outlet, this scratching, this more gentle kind of, because yeah, I don't know, you're I think you come out swinging when you're starting to play music, especially from where we were from and like what we were exposed to. You kind of like come out just thinking that you got to be the loudest, the most intense, and then when you kind of start, when the songs kind of start to come into focus, that it's that you're more trying to, maybe your picture requires a different palette you're painting. We all kind of got to shift lanes, I guess, at the same time.
So let's dive into that self-titled debut album. So that's 2003, and this is in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. So on the podcast, I talk music all the time and albums and musicians, and I'm always I'm always I'll send you a link every now and then where I'm like, oh, like Rich from Finger 11 and I just talked about Wintersleep for 20 minutes and or other people. So anyways, this is in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. So it means a lot to me. This is the debut for you guys that kicked off the career that you've been on. What thoughts, memories, emotions come to you when you think back to that debut album?
Oh my goodness. It was such a kind of um just it's it was so exciting to be able to take things into our hands and our own hands and just kind of push forward, because we had like a false start. We had a couple false starts actually to making that record, because we can't like I recorded a bunch of stuff in apartment that I had. A couple of the songs actually made it on to like the B side, like the vinyl there was a vinyl accompaniment to the Dino Lone reissue of the first record, Gas for Air, and I think the other song was How Do You Do It? Um those were recorded in the apartment, but it was very limited. I had like two microphones and like it was good for some songs, but when we started to get a bit more expansive with songs like Orca and stuff, we were like, okay, we need a studio proper. So we went down, there was a place in Halifax in the Khyber building downtown, and our friend Charles Austin ran the studio. And I remember we tried to track Soar and Caliber there. Well, we did, and we just I don't know, for some reason it just wasn't really like the beds weren't just didn't go down well. And then we ended up talking like our friends in the Heavy Meadows made this record with a guy named James Shaw down in Lunenburg, and he gave them, it sounded really good. We were really into the sound of it, and they were kind of like a similar aesthetic to Wintersleep. And so we kind of asked him, and it was like really, he was just kind of cutting his teeth as a recording engineer. So he offered us like a really good deal and kind of like this endless amount of time. And so we ended up tracking with him. And yeah, I thought we had countless sessions because we started doing it in his house, and then he moved into this old Mason's Hall in Lunenburg. And that was like a super crazy, like expansive space with like huge rooms, huge ceilings, but also a lot of rooms where you could get tighter sounds and stuff. So it was basically, we had like this kind of like endless, you know, atmospheric control over the atmosphere there. So that's where we tracked everything. And except outside of a couple drum tracks from his house. But yeah, we had been working on songs for quite a while, because that came out in 2003. I think we were working pretty hard like every week on just developing what we had. And I don't know what some of the first songs we had were. Avalanche was one, Caliber, Assembly. Um, those were all kind of hashed out before we went in. We were pretty well rehearsed, I think, before. Um, there's yeah, and Judd was playing great bass lines on the go. But yeah, it was over the course of a couple years that we were putting it all together. It was um yeah, because we were just so excited about what we were coming up with, and it was so different than the other bands that we were in at the time.
So my understanding is Orca at that time kind of gets embraced by radio in the East Coast, and it's picking up speed and momentum. What was it like hearing your music on the radio for the first time? Maybe you had other songs on the radio before that with other music, but
No,
okay.
yeah, no, that was definitely the first one. I remember hearing it. It was kind of like amazing because Orcas doesn't really fit into like a rock radio format. It's like starts out, vocal, guitar, it takes a while because, like when you're listening to rock radio, it's like there's generally like a full on drum kit kind of bashing throughout a whole track or whatever. Um, so I was blown away that it was picked up by that format. It was so not catered to that, but yeah,
And it's such a
we had a
unique
champion
song
at
too, right? It's such a unique
yeah.
song.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and the way it was arranged and stuff like it's just it's funny how I don't know just how that music came up back then. Obviously, Paul had the the lyric melody like throughout pretty much, but like the accompaniment of like goes into like a like kind of like this drum solo at some point, like where there's like just this break and it's funny like how how you come up with music changes over time or the way you would react to a song or whatever. But yeah, that was it was picked up there. We had a champion at the radio 104 here. I think his name is JP, and he had a connection with the Vancouver station Seahawks, and it was getting played a lot out there too. So yeah, that really kind of got the ball rolling for us because I mean, if you're getting effortlessly kind of getting played on commercial rock radio, it's like people usually you know pay attention, I guess. So yeah, we were able to like connect with agents and stuff like that after.
Yeah, the drums are such a crucial part of Wintersleep sound, and that's apparent even on that debut album. Songs like Avalanche, Orca, and Assembly Lines. And I had a few notes here. So the focusing on Avalanche. So to me, the drum work really stands out. There's like the extended hi-hat sections. There's tom work. How driving the sound becomes when the drums kick in all the way. Can you share with our listeners? Any insight into the writing and recording of Avalanche? To me, that's like one of the standout songs on that album.
Yeah, we record we me and Paul were living together on South Street at some point, and we tried recording it in his garage, and there was limitations there because we just needed a more controlled environment because yeah, I mean with that song I was just trying to kind of like uh fill out the landscape for that or I was it's very just trying to like I'm just trying to like be part of the song. That's sounds a bit weird, but like the song's about it just it's when the chorus hits, it doesn't hit, it just kind of everything quiets down and it's like at the I was just trying to be attentive to the lyrics and be compassionate towards the song because I just wanted to make it keep building like an avalanche, like you hear like up in the distance kind of rolling and and we're kind of emoting like getting hot louder and louder and eventually at the end of the song it's just this kind of bash of noise. So it was kind of like the approach to my drumming and stuff was pretty conceptual at the time, even though I probably didn't really know it. But at the time, I was just trying to like fit in with the song that Paul had. So, yeah, and because it starts out with I like long drives, and I wanted something with propulsion there, so I'm like doing double time. So I'm always just trying to play into. I mean, I still am trying to just play into what can I do that's not disruptive, but is adding to the experience of the song, or just trying to be kind of just do the right thing. And in that, a lot of that album is we kind of like had these limitations put on ourselves because we were from such heavy bands that I feel like I was just trying to do something totally different than what I did. So I would just try different approaches and different sticks too. Like I use brushes and rods and just trying to like keep away from clouding up the vocal, just trying to paint if Paul's like in like the forefront of the painting, I'm trying to like, give color to the sky or something like that.
So, so yeah, Avalanche is one of the first songs I ever heard from Wintersleep. And I remember what stood out was, there's the part where it kind of breaks down and it's just the hi-hat, the that
Yeah,
part.
just
And
keeping time.
yeah,
Yeah.
to me, I feel like any other band on the planet, you would do that. You would hit that 4 times and then the band would come in. And I remember it keeps going. I think you do it 8 times. And that hit me
Yeah.
that this band is not in a hurry to do what they're doing. Like if it requires some patience and slow building, like it's all going to come
Yeah.
in at some point. And I remember that was a moment where I thought, okay, there's something different about this band.
Yeah, that space like was very like a conscious decision, like that it was like in that space it's such like a precious and important space where, yeah, where it's intentional and you're creating this tension or this kind of drama to it. And it was just it wasn't like, we didn't think of it as like creating like tension or drama at that time. It was just a feeling, it was very just guttural kind of reaction, just holding things, like the pace of it all. Because I think in the end it did give the it made the song's crescendo that much more intense. Like it finally comes and it's like, because it does get like loudest of loud in that song at the very end. And at that point, it just gives it just makes that high so much higher with having that such like a low.
So we have a fan question sent in here. So this
Oh
is
wow.
from Selge Menard. His question is, where did you learn your unorthodox style, or who inspired it? Very busy and lots of different time signatures, at least with Wintersleep. So when he says unorthodox, this is a compliment. This isn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, I guess, because I never took lessons. I self-taught. So I was always just trying to figure out stuff. And I would just primarily, I think I probably what they're getting at there is, I don't know, like I've had like on that record, like a song like Ambulance, like I had people like ask me why I played it like that, because I forget the time signature of that song, but why I played it like that. And it's I don't know, because like I was just like learning. I would learn like the guitar riff and just kind of like try to play drums like the guitar riff. And I wasn't even like, I didn't really even know how to count like time signatures back then. It was just such like a innocent kind of approach to creating drum parts. So I think my lack of knowledge kind of informed my unorthodox playing, but also I had this my own meter within me that I worked on all the time. So it kind of yeah, I think the combination of me being such an amateur in one respect, but working so hard on what I did know, kind of created this kind of odd style. And I would do and going into that apartment where I couldn't play at full volumes, I had to figure out, kind of ways to kind of make like a groove, but that was interesting to me, but like playing off like the hi-hat clicking and like a sparse beat and like maybe like ghost notes on the snare as opposed to something that's more filled in or whatever. So I was fortunate to like be forced into a quieter environment, so that forced me to experiment more with playing quiet and just how to keep things like rolling, like what was at the core of things that I liked, good grooves and stuff like that.
So over the entire, I believe it's 7 albums for Wintersleep, over the whole discography, there's quite a few Wintersleep songs in different time signatures. I believe there's a lot of 6/4 in there, like calibers in 6/4. Is it more difficult for you or for musicians in general to play songs in different time signatures, or is it all the same to you, whether it's in 4/4 or 6/4?
For Wintersleep stuff, it was always just kind of like how we would like we especially on the first few records, we would just rehearse all the time. So you're kind of developing parts over a while. So I would obviously, yeah, I would just try to like wrap my head around the guitar riffs and stuff like that. I didn't even know like, yeah, I knew that it was like, oh, the snare doesn't work there. So I knew that I had to like bend around the riff. And I think that, you know, but still trying to like make it, you know, make the time signature um as least distracting as possible, because you like if something's in a weird time signature, like you know like a Soundgarden song or something like that, Cameron makes you think that it's
Like Spoon
not.
Man or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, or yeah, Black Hole Sun, even like you know,
Fell on
Fell on
Black
Black
Days.
Days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in a weird time signature too. And but the way he would make parts, you know, he would make you groove even though it was in 5 or 7 or whatever. So that was kind of always my intention, to break it down enough just over repetition, of a painful amount of repetition, and just kind of like till it felt like it was, you know, like one thing, as opposed to like a detached kind of, oh, the drummer's playing, you know, this over it, you know, it's trying to make it all feel like one, you know, merged, kind of married, like organism, I guess is the best way to describe it. But we would just beat things to death where they would start to just feel like one thing. And I was never really paying attention to time signatures and stuff like that. It was just like, how can this loop around on itself with you know, some interesting, well, but hopefully not distracting way. Um, yeah, and just kind of be hypnotic, you know, because we around that time, like we would in the early days, we covered Portishead songs and stuff like that, and like I think we were interested in that, like just grooves and like some of that trip hop stuff, and that
That
was kind of my
album Dummy
influence.
was so good.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of all the Portishead stuff, and the Beak, Jeff Burrows, his Beak project too is like they're putting out great records, and yeah, the drumming on that stuff is as a big influence on me for sure.
So let's dive into the next album. So 2005, you guys released the Untitled album. You can see it here right behind me. I got the cover. So this is my I guess wall of fame. So these are my favorite 12 albums from guests that have been on the podcast. And it's already up, even though you're on right now. And that is because when I first started the podcast about 2.5 years ago, I made a list of dream guests, and I had Wintersleep at the very top. And back on episode, I think it's 44, I'd have to double check, I had Paul Murphy from Wintersleep come on as a guest. And it's like all my dreams had come true. And now I have another member. So this is even better.
Oh, that's great.
And then before we showed, so this T-shirt is from the music video Fog off of that album. And I mentioned to you before we started recording that from, you know, the 15 Wintersleep shows I've been to over the years, I've probably owned 3, 4, 5 Wintersleep T-shirts. And because we go back so far, this is the only one that's survived all the washing and drawings of, you know, drawings, all the times I've worn the shirt. So, so with this album, you guys are nominated for a Juno. This is the CD DVD artwork design of the year. So how cool that album cover looks. And I guess what stands out to me going from the debut album to this one, we had talked about the debut is very sparse, very acoustic. It's like the acoustic guitar is the lead instrument on the first album. This one is a lot more fleshed out, more electric, more full band sounding. Was that a conscious decision going into this album?
It was a natural progression, I guess, because yeah, I mean, we were all, I mean, still think it has like I think has like a reserved kind of quality to it. Everything's kind of, not that it's held back, but everything's very um thought everything's very thought out on it. So it's and we started playing like on the first record, we started playing in clubs around town. So you're in the bar atmosphere. So that's generally kind of a loud atmosphere, and just the songs kind of lent themselves um, towards, uh, trying like, more of a full on kind of um, band approach. Yeah, so it was just kind of, it was not conscious at all. I don't think anything, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like with anything that we've done, it's never been like, oh, let's make this kind of record. It's always just kind of the product of the environment and like wherever we happen to be rehearsing at that time, or you know what I mean? It just kind of all seeps into it. But yeah, we had a proper rehearsal space when we were writing those songs.
That
In
helps, eh?
how Yeah, in Gottingen. So we were out of my apartment. Um
Moving
and
on up.
yeah, so we had like amps there. And so the guys played through amps, and we had like a vocal PA. So it's not just Paul singing in the room without any amps, with an acoustic guitar and me trying to play under that, because that's really how the first record was. We didn't have like a vocal PA or anything like that. So the second one was just more of a jam spacer album. And it sounds like that because it's just, there's a lot of jammy kind of elements to it. Yeah, a lot of parts, like a lot of, like Judd has a lot of you know, really awesome bass parts that he just worked on forever, and he would come to a rehearsal and be like, oh, like I developed this more. And we were all just developing stuff as much as we could.
Yeah, I'd have to mention the dynamics on the album. So
Mm.
it's not often you can say that within one album you've got like soft, um, intricate, beautiful moments, but you also have like intense, heavy,
I know, like
scary
really.
moments. Like it's such a there's such a wide breadth of moments and intensities and all that stuff. So, listen, listen, listen is like as quiet and beautiful as
Yeah.
you can be, up to like, jaws of life and nerves normal, breath normal. Again, is that while you're writing and recording, is this a conscious thing that you can show this wide range of musicianship and genres on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was something that we discovered in the first record and kind of went for more because yeah, listen, listen, it was just like such, like we just wanted to make it as gentle as possible, and just this kind of like that song, even when I think of it now, it's just like has this like pulse, like this but it's very dull. It's almost sounds like it's like a
It,
block over
it
or
sounds like
something
a
like that.
heartbeat. So if you follow
Yeah,
like the lyrical content, to me, it
yeah,
sounds like
exactly.
the
That's
heartbeat
what
with the
that's what it
lyrics.
was. Yeah, I mean that's what it started as. It was always a tough one to play live because when you're playing in a club and you're starting out like so quiet, we actually had a we started playing a different that more with like a groove the whole way through. That we have a recorded version of that somewhere, but yeah, that version on the record is so quiet. It's like the patience and like the yeah, just, and it obviously explodes in the da, da, the kind of, it doesn't have lyrics, but the kind of emotive crescendo of the song. Uh, yeah, and yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's some of our heaviest sounding stuff is on that too. Like Dance Macabre is like um, so heavy, and like I love the drum sounds on that record. Lawrence Curry recorded that, and he's based in Ontario now, but he's like a world class engineer, and we recorded all that stuff. I think in just two sessions. I think we did all the drums and all the bed tracks in like 2 days. And but we were just we were so well prepared because we were rehearsing all the like 4 times a week or whatever. We just knew exactly what we wanted to do when we got in there.
So I mentioned at the start of this interview that I had a few Wintersleep stories. So here's a good time to bring in one. This is about listen, listen, listen. So that is my My favorite Wintersleep song of all time. So that's
Oh,
saying a lot, you know, when I say it's Wintersleep's my favorite band. So out of the entire discography, all the songs, that's my one favorite song from my favorite band. So that's like the pinnacle of pinnacles.
that's
And
awesome.
the album, I had mentioned the debut albums in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. This one, the Untitled album, is in my top 3 albums of all time. I'm very consistent across all these interviews. I always say my top 3 albums of all time: Rage Against the Machine, self-titled debut from 1992, Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, and then Untitled from Wintersleep. So you're
Mhm.
right up there with, to me, some of the greatest albums of all time. And my story about Listen, Listen, Listen is, you know, I've been a fan forever. I go to see you guys play live. I'm in a band, and I see that you guys are going to be playing at Zaphod's in
Mm.
Ottawa. And the way Zaphod's works is they usually have 2 opening bands and a main band, and the main band is done by 11. Everyone
Mhm.
clears out, and then it becomes a dance club. So they get like twice the capacity for per night. That's like the business model. So
Yeah.
I see that Wintersleep is coming up, and for sure I'm going. And then I see there's no openers. So I reach out to Eugene, the owner, and does the
Mhm.
bookings. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, like, you have room for 2 more bands here. He's like, no, it's just Wintersleep. I'm like, but that's not like the format you normally have. And I said,
Yeah.
look, my band has to open. I'm like, look, I will sell 100+ tickets. I don't even have to get paid. Like, this is a dream of mine.
Yeah.
So he said, all right, man, if that's what you want to do. So within 1 week, I sold 100 tickets. I showed up with the money from the tickets sold. We opened for you guys.
Distant
Uh,
Society, right?
Distant Society, yeah. And
Yeah.
I and
Yeah.
I shared with you, like, to me, it's like, they say don't meet your heroes, right? So like you're
Yeah.
nervous. And I remember just trying to not fangirl on you guys and just saying like, hey, listen, like, I'm a big fan of you guys, all that. And this is what you guys do. You finish your set and then you do an encore. And Paul says, all right, we got one more song, and this is dedicated to our new friend Joel. And you guys played Listen, Listen, Listen as your encore, which, you know, is not the easiest to play, and you know,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
always in the set list. So that meant a
No.
lot to me. And then when the night is done, like, this is the best night of my life. You were
Mhm.
out in the parking lot in front of Zaphod's, and
Yeah.
you know, I go up and I go, "Hey man, thank you so much. Like, this meant a lot. Thanks for the encore, all that stuff." And I put out my hand, like, "Hey, you know, it was great to meet you." And you bear hugged me. And I'm 5'5". You have to be 6'2", 3, 4, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I was engulfed in a Loel Campbell hug. It might be the highlight of my whole life. So I had to share that with you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, that I mean that meant a lot to us. So we knew how much work you put into that, and I don't know, just whenever anybody helps you out, like, that it was obvious that you cared so much about it. It was just like that feeling, because at that time it was just like we were just getting going, and all those kind of gestures of whenever somebody put their neck out for you, it's just like you have to appreciate those moments.
You were the exception to the rule of be careful meeting your heroes, because sometimes it can be a letdown. You're one of the good guys proving that it's okay to meet your heroes. I have one final question about the time period around that album. You guys ended up opening up for Pearl Jam for 2 different shows in St. John's. These are like
Yeah.
stadium shows. Were you already a Pearl Jam fan? I guess we're talking about the grunge days, that's
Mm.
kind of where you fell in love with music. Were you a Pearl Jam fan before those shows? And what was the experience like playing those massive shows? Those have to be the biggest shows you played up until that point.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that I was a big Pearl Jam fan. I was a huge Pearl Jam fan because Sean, my brother, brought 10 home, and he brought Temple of the Dog home. And we waited, like, I think I skipped school the day the verses kicked out. Now it came out, and we were like waiting at the mall for the records on wheels to open or whatever. And then Vitology came out, and like I remember driving to school with Sean, and we were just listening to Vitology every day. And then after that, No Code and Yield, like that I was
All right, you're
all
name
in.
dropping all the album titles, so you're
I
definitely a
was
fan.
I was in fully, and I had like That was that Neil Young record that they did with Mirror Ball, and they had like a B-sides, Merkin Ball. And that was the cool thing when we got to play with them. Like, I don't know. I think we were all, our minds were blown that we had this opportunity, and we were so excited. And, you know, I think we found out just a few days before. So we all pile in our van and drive to St. John's, Newfoundland, like take the ferry. So like, we're kind of just showing up just in time. But fortunately, we always had a nice, uh, Judd is from St. John's, so whenever it was kind of like our second home. We played so many shows there in the early days, so we kind of had, we knew Judd's family, so like we would always stay at their house. And anyways, we get there, and yeah, we sound check. I think we're just super nervous, but they like break the ice immediately and come and introduce themselves. And yeah, after the show, they take us out to go bowling the first after the first show, because I think it's the end of a long tour for them. So a few of their partners and wives are there and stuff, because but Sleater Kinney was supposed to open those shows and had to pull out at the very end. I think maybe budget didn't work out or something like that. So that's how we got on those shows, and they took us out bowling. So I bowled against Stone Gossard that night, and they were just super lovely, and we were super like, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I was just like, yeah, it was just like totally mind blowing. I never thought that. I mean, I think we had gone to Europe before that, and that was a big deal. I think that was like in high school. Like, if I can go to Europe and play shows in a band, that was like basically my goal. It was like, I'm like good after that, and like I'd so like haven't, you know, thinking that you might open for Pearl Jam. One of my favorite bands, was, yeah, it was almost too much to handle. It was like, after that, it was like hard to, yeah, to kind of calibrate after that. But yeah, they were so sweet. And the next day, Eddie came out and opened for us, solo set, and then we played. And Olivia is their Jill and Ed's daughter, and she was like a baby then. And kind of full circle moment, when I was on tour with Broken Social Scene in the fall, we did Eddie Vedder's music festival in, Ohana, it's called, in Laguna Beach area down in California. And I got to hang out with Eddie again there, and I actually saw like she's like grown up now. She's like 19 or 20, and she's kind of like in the mix of the festival. Beautiful festival. Everybody's so sweet. It's like one big family. But I don't know. That was, it was. And Eddie, like, I walked up to Eddie and I was like, "Hey, it's Loel from Wintersleep," and he like immediately remembered. I was like, "Newfoundland," and we hung out for quite a while after that. And it's just like, just wild to, it just blows my mind to think that things like that in life can happen.
Man,
'Cause,
it must be tough, you know, doing the two stadium shows with Pearl Jam, hanging out and bowling, and then it's like the next morning you wake up and you're on your couch, like life is back to
it's like,
normal. Like the highs
yeah,
and
it's like,
lows of the music industry are wild.
I know, yeah, because you're like, I can't hang out with Stone Gossard today. Like, he's in Seattle and I don't have his phone number.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was
that's
it
too
was it
funny.
was it was wild. So yeah, those moments are very intense, but I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, like those moments keep happening in this musical existence, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah, it's just, that was the first big thing that we got to do as a band.
So I have some kind words sent in from Seamus Curry, a member of the multi-platinum group The Sheepdogs. So
Oh,
he
shame.
he keeps it short and sweet here. He says, "Tell him he's a sweet dude and a hell of a drummer." That's from Seamus Curry. Right to the point.
Thanks, Seamus. Yeah, we got to play together. I produced the record for our friend Kate Boothman it's a while ago now, but we formed, it was me and Seamus and Tim, and Kate and Anna Ruddick were the band. When we did some shows, we opened for Blue Rodeo and stuff. Seamus is a great guy, great player.
I
Haven't
just
seen him
saw
in a
them
while.
play a week ago. They played, they had a 94 date tour, and the 94th show was here in Ottawa at the NAC. And a
Wow.
few days before the show, I had their newest band member, who's from this region, Ricky Paquette. So he's on lead guitar.
Yeah.
So I just interviewed him. The episode launches today. I'm going to release that. So that's my
Cool.
Sheepdogs connection. I just saw them live. I had never seen them before. And man, they're pros. The
Oh
lead
yeah.
guitar was wild. The songs were great. The harmonies, man, it was like a master class in old school harmonies.
Oh,
And
totally. I mean, yeah, they're the real deal. Like they're all great folks, like Ryan and Ewan and Sam. Jimmy Boskill, I guess, is it Ricky? I don't know him.
Ricky and Jimmy were like young
Jimmy Boskill,
prodigy.
I know
Yeah. So they were like young guitar prodigies. They've known each other over the
yeah.
years, having their own success. And then when Jimmy goes over to Blue Rodeo, that's how I know Jimmy. Then Ricky comes
Yeah.
in, like they're friends, and it's like he's the perfect replacement, you know? So
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's great. Jimmy's so busy, so in demand, such a special musician he is.
and he just this year, like we're fresh into 2023. He's already released a new album. So it's Boskill and something.
Yeah,
It's him
yeah,
and a female.
yeah. I think it's his partner. I
Brooks
haven't
and
dug into
Boskill,
that stuff, but
Boskill and Brooks. Is that
yeah,
it?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it's amazing. He's an amazing musician.
So that just
I'll have
came
to
out.
check that
So
out.
let's dive into 2007's Welcome to the Night Sky. So off of this album is Weighty Ghost, which is a legit top 10 hit across Canada. What was it like we talked about hearing your song on the radio for the first time with Orca. My question now is, what is it like to have a song that's like a legit hit that you're hearing on the radio frequently? I remember Much Music played the music video very frequently. What is that experience like? That's like the next level of radio.
Yeah, that Weighty Ghost was kind of omnipresent everywhere. It was kind of unescapable, which was amazing. That song resonated. I think it was, it's still a different sounding song, but I think at that time it was like the choices that we made on the production on that, because we before we really did the album version of it, we it was like more rocky. It was like it was not quite the right, the choices that were appropriate for the song. Nailed it on the record with the organ and this kind of odd treatment, because I think it's kind of like, I feel like a lot of bands after that, not that they like ripped us off or anything like that, but that was kind of like the predecessor to, like, I don't what I imagine. I don't really know what Mumford and Sons sound like, but that's what I kind of imagine. And like Luminaires and stuff like that, it was kind of singular at that time. There was not like a lot of stuff on alternative radio.
I think like Train's Hey Soul Sister, that's also like, it starts with kind of
Yeah,
the
yeah, that has like a mandolin or something off
and
the
it's one
top,
of
right?
those that
Yeah,
it's building with the drums and eventually
yeah,
the
yeah,
full
yeah,
band
yeah,
comes in. I think
yeah.
that comes later after this song. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I remember Paul leaving that song on my voicemail or something like that one time, and I think, wondering if it would fit with what we did, and I was like, yeah, it was like super stoked to work on it, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of a classic song. It's like I still hear it all the time, and it's amazing that to see a song have that much life to it. It actually has a life of its own. Yeah, that was fantastic. Still great.
So listening to the 4 albums after Welcome to the Night Sky, you can hear that Weighty Ghost fits in with those songs. But previous to Weighty Ghost coming out as a single, if you look at the first 2 albums, there's nothing really like Weighty Ghost. So was there a fear of releasing a song that was so different sonically to what had already been released on record for Wintersleep?
I think we knew it was accessible. I don't think we really, I mean, I guess at that time, I think there was like over time, like kind of music has become less precious in a way, like, or I don't know, you see people doing, you'll see, it's so common for bands to be in a car commercial or something like that. And it's like applauded now. But back then, that was kind of teetering on the time where being successful wasn't cool. You know what I mean? Like it was like, so we kind of knew that it was, a very accessible song. But it's like, that's the reason to not play a song that you love, so it was interesting. I mean, because like in Halifax, there was a bit of backlash, because we all still lived in Halifax at the time, and yeah, when people don't like it when things get popular a lot of the time. So there was a bit of a backlash, just like kind of like in the music community, I guess, a little bit, but. Um, for the most part, I mean, it takes those kind of moments to know who your real friends are and stuff like that, and who because obviously that's just like a great song. So,
But that's all. That's
yeah,
also how you know you've made it, is when you start getting the backlash and the haters for being popular. So I remember when I did an interview with Rich Beto of Finger 11 and Saint Asonia, he said that when they had the massive global hit Paralyzer, which is like way into their career, that
yeah,
Chad Kroger from Nickelback reached out to Finger 11 and said, "Congratulations, you've just hit like the pinnacle of hit singles. Now you're going to start to get haters, and that's how you know
uh,
you've made it." And Nickelback is the most hated band in the world. Like
yeah, they've gone.
everyone actually loves Nickelback, but there's just like the inside joke that they're so popular that you can't like them. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah,
of all the people in the world, Chad Kroger knows about what it's like to have hit the peak and get a bunch of haters. So that's like you guys with Weighty Ghost. That song was so popular and so catchy. You start to get some haters. That's how you knew
yeah.
you made it. I've heard every new level has a new devil, and that's kind of
Yeah,
like
that's
you guys when you hit it with Weighty Ghost. You knew you made it with the
yeah,
haters.
well, yeah, for sure. I mean, that definitely, yeah, we entered into a different kind of uh stratosphere than just kind of, more bigger shows and um more attention, just people were, yeah, just like more in the mainstream. Because I think, yeah, that song was like, the video of that went to number one on the much more music countdown or something like that. And yeah, it was all just really cool to see. It's so awesome when people are like your songs.
So Weighty Ghost is still Wintersleep's most played song on Spotify, is 10 million spins. Why do you think people love that song so much?
I think it's really relatable. I think it's like vague enough, like has an ambiguousness that you can, like, even though I say it's relatable, but I think you can take a lot away from that. And the melody is just like super hooky. Yeah, I mean, it's accessible. Like, you don't have to struggle to like think of the melodies from that song. It's just like it's there. I think of like when you hear Paul McCartney talk about, when they knew they had a good song because it was easy to remember. It was like they couldn't take voice memos back in those days, even though I got that voice mail of Paul left it on my machine or whatever. But immediately the first time I heard it, it was like just is it just so easy to access. Like, I think that's a good sign of a good song.
So the success of Weighty Ghost took you guys all the way to performing that song on David Letterman. What was that experience like? Is it super exciting, or is it really nerve wracking because you're on TV, one of the biggest shows, period?
I mean, yeah, it was just really exciting because when you get an opportunity to do that, it's like, okay, let's do this really well. We're really performing at the time. I think we on the show, but obviously it's kind of like Nova Scotia, small town Nova Scotia guys. It's like it's another one of these things that we were kind of all experiencing at the same time together. But yeah, I mean, just having each other to kind of go through it together. That might be cheesy, but I mean, it's going through all these things at the first time was comforting, and being with such great friends. You can made it a lot easier than I'm sure like somebody like a pop star being thrusted into some sort of team would have it. So yeah, I don't know. It's pretty awesome to do that with a bunch of friends. And it was kind of like that was our New Inheritors record had come out at that time, and it was kind of like you know at the time we just thought it would be best to play what we kind of thought was our best song to date on the show, as opposed to something from
To
New
get that
Inheritors,
out to a
because
US or global audience, I guess.
yeah, because we were introducing ourselves to an entirely new audience. So many people that didn't hear us. And oddly enough, like off that show, like Robbie Robertson saw us play it on that show and invited us to play at his induction to the Songwriting Hall of Fame off that. Um, you know,
I think that
obviously the
alone made it
butterfly
worth it.
effect of these. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But the butterfly, when you have that exposure, and it's always good to try to like, you know, think of the format, that's like, it's like David Letterman, like you can't get any more like, it's late night, but it's still like main of the mainstream. So to work within the parameters of that format to begin with, right?
So on the strength of that album, Welcome to the Night Sky, you guys win your first Juno Awards. This is 2008. You win for New Group of the Year, I believe. Yeah. What does that
Yeah.
what does that award mean to you? I mean, this is Canada's Grammys. What does it mean to you that your country acknowledges the hard work and talent and creativity that you've put in after all those
Uh,
years?
I think it was just that at that time, because I mean, you're doing at that point we were doing uh doing it, we were touring pretty consistently for 5 years at that point or something, with not much to go off of, like as far as accolades go. And if like if there's not like, if you're just on the road all the time, and like yeah, I don't know, like having an award like that, it's just like kind of makes everything um kind of warranted. Your family hears about that, and like they're super excited for you, like it ma- makes all the time you put into it validated. Yeah, it was wonderful to receive that at that time, and it just put wind in our sails.
So around the time of that album, you guys were selected to open for Paul McCartney. You had just mentioned Paul McCartney a few minutes ago. How did that come to be? And did you feel any kind of imposter syndrome being in the presence of the great one? The Beatles, greatest songwriting duo of all time. What was that
Yeah,
like?
well, I mean, I think it was another thing like about doing it all together, like, and just kind of the general um how gradual things were with the band up till then. Everything, it was just such a slow roll. And yeah, I mean, that was I think we were selected because there was I think a friend of ours in Montreal was asked for recommendations for bands from Halifax, and we were on that list. So it was us, and Joel Plunkett was playing that day as well. Forget who else. Feel like somebody else played too, but yeah, that was awesome, because we soundtracked right after him, and he waited out on the stage for us and like said hello, which was amazing. And I just remember how kind of underdressed I was at the time. I was like wearing like cut off shorts and like my Daniel Johnson t-shirt.
I
And
made a grave mistake.
yeah, I was like, I probably should have put on something nice to meet Paul McCartney. But
I feel like you need like a full suit is the only way to like
yeah,
properly.
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. But he was amazing. So nice. So, and he like joked around with our bass player, Mike Bigelow, for a while. Said something about us bass players need to stick together. But yeah, the imposter syndrome. I don't know. In that time, we were going over to play an Irish festival the next day. Like we actually had to leave right after we played that day. so we were just kind of rolling, and it was just kind of like, this is a really cool thing that we can do. And my family was there, and they were just like, again, that's kind of like saying similar kind of experience to winning a Juno. If you get to open for Paul McCartney, and that's like, okay, I think you're doing. It seemed, kind of, it's like pretty pretty awesome thing to be doing. It's a good gig to get.
I think you've been validated between the Juno, David Letterman, the Paul McCartney, and the Pearl Jam show. I think there's some documentation there.
Yeah, no, that's great. But these things need to keep coming. It's like, that's, yeah, it's such a hungry, you just want the next thing after that, right?
So we have about 40 minutes left, but there's still 4 Wintersleep albums. I want to dive into Contrived, a little Billy Talent, the solo record. You have so much. So here's what we'll do. There's 4 more Wintersleep albums. So 2010's New Inheritors, 2012 Hello Hum, 2016 The Great Detachment, and 2019 In the Land of. So maybe I'll just cherry pick a few questions from those 4 albums, and then we'll dive into Contrived. Between New Inheritors and Hello Hum, there's 6 singles: Black Camera, New Inheritors, Trace Decay, Preservation, In Came the Flood, and Nothing Is Anything Without You. When you think back to recording both of those albums, is there anything that stands out to you? Any stories or moments in the writing and recording of those 2 albums that would be worth mentioning?
New Inheritors we did at Celine Dion's studio. She had some association with it in Montreal, and it was quite far from the areas that we lived in, so it was like an hour commute there every day, which was kind of painful. The studio was cool. It was kind of like a bit I don't know, stiff or something. But yeah, I don't know, that was we were kind of that was kind of like the most unprepared we'd been, I think, for a record. We knew the songs and stuff like that, but we didn't. There was a lot of experimentation going on in the studio, and the first record that we did is like with John involved, and Mike Bigelow was on that record too, and the producer from Welcome to Night Sky came back, Tony Dugan. Yeah, a couple false starts to that, because we started it and originally in the studio called Break Glass, and the air conditioning was broken, so we just didn't get anything done, and we had to start all over at the other studio. But yeah, that was fun. That was 2010, and then 2012 it was just me and Paul and Tim that went down to upstate New York, well, up like Buffalo area, Fredonia, to Dave Fridman's studio, who made he's an amazing producer. He made countless records with Flaming Lips and I don't know, MGMT, Modest Mouse, Mogwai, Delgados, like so many great records. So we were just pumped to be at his studio. We got to go down there with Tony, and that was we just kind of lived and worked on the music there for a couple weeks, and that was a cool experience to make middle of nowhere America. Yeah, it was great, and to make it with such a legendary. Yeah, I mean, he's just got great taste. He's just an amazing musical mind. So also around him for that. Yeah. So yeah, we played badminton while we made the Hello Hum record. That was cool.
So 2016's The Great Detachment. I had it on my list of best albums of 2016 when it came out. I think it's up there with Wintersleep's best albums. That's my opinion. You guys have the hit single America. This is the band's first #1 single on rock radio. It goes both to #1 on rock and alternative rock radio. What does that achievement mean to you? Did it feel like, Weighty Ghost was a top 10 hit across Canada? This is like #1 on different charts. I remember it staying at #1 for several weeks. I remember Dynalone Records was promoting that it was the longest running whatever #1 on rock radio. Did it feel like on radio you guys had reached a new peak yet again?
Oh, for sure. That was like, I mean, it had, at that point, I think it was almost 10 years since Weighty Ghost. So, you know, as far as the trajectory of the kind of climate that we're in with, like, you know, you're kind of, um, you know, you want to be on the radio. So, you want your songs to be charting, and so you can't get any higher than number one. So that was like pretty sweet to have it on there for that long. And yeah, everybody was just so happy about that, you know, like when you're number one, it's like that's, you know, that's the best that you can do pretty much. So we got asked to like throw out the first pitch for a Blue Jays game, and like I don't know, we just had a ton of really great opportunities that year. A lot of, you know, and when you have like a hit song like that, you just get asked to play more shows, and yeah, we were just really busy, and yeah, and just I love that song. Yeah, it's just nice when you do something, and the way we recorded it was quite unorthodox too, like the beat in the room, because we recorded the guitar like it's all live, so like there's no baffling between the amps and stuff like that. We just set everything up together just because we wanted to have this kind of like that kind of energy of just this unhinged kind of you know, singular kind of propulsion to it. And I just think it's crazy that a song like that was recorded that way did so well, because that's really supposed to happen.
And quickly on this baseball pitch, how did the pitch go? It wasn't like Conor McGregor or 50 Cent that had the worst pitches of all time that went viral and were embarrassing. Did you guys have a decent pitch?
Well, yeah, we did. I think we did rock paper scissors for who was gonna do it. So Paul won the rock paper scissors. So Paul threw it out. He had a great pitch,
Attaboy.
landed it right. I don't think there was much deviation for the catcher. And my nephew is actually came. He's a big sports guy. He was, I don't know, Caden's probably 7 years old then, 7 or 8, maybe a bit older. Gave him the ball after that, so that was really that's still a prized possession of my nephew Caden's. Yeah, that was really really cool. You don't think that you're going to do stuff with sports when you're playing in your basement.
So my final question about the Great Detachment, Geddy Lee from Rush plays on the song Territory. Did you get to actually spend time with Geddy Lee or be in the studio with him, or did he record on his own and ship the track over?
He recorded on his own, but we did get to correspond with him over emails, just with, because we got him to do a few different takes with different suggestions, which is a crazy kind of thing to do. Like, it's weird.
Give Geddy Lee suggestions.
Yeah. It's like, if you ask Geddy Lee to do something, it's like you're gonna get Geddy Lee, and that should be that. But his tone is so great. Like, I mean, the track sounded amazing, and but yeah, it was yeah, super cool. Me and Paul went down to see what turned out to be the last Rush tour, the R40 tour in Montreal. He gave us great seats, and we got to hang out with him afterwards. And he wrote about us in the Book of Bass, the wonderful coffee table book that Geddy Lee released 2 years ago, I think. He mentions us in the book, which is
wow,
really cool. Yeah,
that's unexpected.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, a friend of mine bought it and mentioned it. I was just like, wow, that's absolutely wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great to see them playing again with at the Taylor Hawkins tribute.
Yeah, I have some kind words sent in from another legendary Canadian drummer. So this is from Glenn Milcham of Blue Rodeo.
Nice.
He says, "Loel!" exclamation mark. Loel is a badass and a sweetheart. Great drummer, producer, and all around nice guy. Everybody loves Loel. Loel is the shit. So that's Glenn Milcham.
Oh, that's nice. Glenn's the shit. we have like back-to-back birthday. He's the 8th and I'm the 9th. We discovered that. I don't know how long ago, but one of my favorite shows I ever got to play was, we used to both play in this band Holy Fuck. And we did a double drum show together. at the Mod Club one time. So it was me and Glenn. We did the whole show. It was pretty epic. He's such a great person and amazing drummer and great songwriter too. The Swallows, and we have a shared interest in David Berman and his catalog too. So yeah, he's a great person.
You think of Glenn playing drums with Blue Rodeo. You don't realize that he's a monster drummer as far
Oh
as like
yeah.
he could do metal, he could do rock as well.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
I mean, did you see like he's playing with Ian Blurton a lot these days, and they're making the new Blurton records. Um, oh, yeah, and he's just like ripping double kick and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, he's amazing, so great.
So one question about 2019's album In the Land of. So after the success of The Great Detachment with the #1 single America, with the top 5 single Spirit, did you guys feel any pressure going into the studio to follow that up?
I'm not really. I mean, we started working on demos pretty soon after, and I don't know. That was a tough couple of years there because we had lots of stuff going on. Uh, just kind of so. But I mean, I really like that, love that record. But you never. I don't think we had any massive hits off that record. But I don't know. It's never. I don't know. Like you just do as best as you can at the time, I guess, or whatever. But obviously, it's nice when you have a hit, but it's like you can't really calculate how to do that.
Yeah, you make the album you want to make, and then even if the album is great, there are so many moving parts as far as what the label does, the promotion, what does radio pick up or not pick up.
Yeah.
The fans are very fickle. Like, are they on to the next trend? Like, are they
Yeah.
all into hip hop now? So it's once you've done what you've done with the album, it's really hard to know what's going to hit or not, despite how great the album is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really happy with it. I love it. There's so many cool songs on that. There's this one song called Waves. Actually, I figured out we were on tour, and I actually figured out it's the same chords as a Post Malone song, that Better Now song.
Oh yeah,
You know
it's
that
that's a
song?
catchy song. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Better
they
now.
they yeah, they mash up perfectly. So I've got this mashup of Wintersleep with Post Malone in my back pocket. I need to share that at some point. It's pretty cool. So might be a hit off it yet.
That's awesome. Final Wintersleep question, and we'll dive into Contrived. I know all the members of Wintersleep are busy with solo projects and side projects and other bands. Is there any plans for any new music or any live shows? I'm asking as a fan, without
with
knowing the
Wintersleep.
answer to it. Yeah, yeah.
I We don't have anything on the books right now, but I think if yeah, I don't know. I don't think anybody's not up for doing that. So, but yeah, we don't have any plans right now. So I don't know. I think there would be, just a level of organization. It was obviously everybody kind of went and kind of on their own kind of path over the pandemic. So um yeah, it's yet to be seen. I mean, Tim lives out in Saskatchewan, but I don't know. There's we're all still young and able.
Yeah,
So I
schedules
don't
would
know.
have to
Yeah.
align, and again, everyone
Yeah.
is so talented at what they do that there's so many projects and so many opportunities. So that's all good. I just had to ask, just in case. So with Contrived, for let's say there's Wintersleep fans that are listening right now that haven't they never dove into the Contrived music. How would you describe Contrived's music for those fans?
Contrive started out as like it's me and my friend Mike McNeil started it when we were in, I think he was out of high school, but I was still in high school, like grade 10 or something like that. And it was just kind of like our first kind of songwriting experiments, and just kind of and figuring out how to record ourselves. So it's back then it was very like Mike was Mike started out being able to kind of fully write songs like pretty quickly. And so it was a lot of his ideas, and then a lot of just kind of like sonic experiments. And then I don't know, it's just been a progression of songwriting, and it's kind of matured over time as these things happen. So it's a lot of like, it started out with me and Mike, and then Mike Bigelow. We all grew up in the same town, so he joined, and then we moved to Halifax, and Tim from Wintersleep joined, and then John, who was in Contrived, and then John joined Wintersleep.
It's a
So
very incestuous
oh
musical
yeah,
group.
oh, back then it was crazy. Yeah, it was. We all played in everybody's band. So, but yeah, took a break. Well, we everybody in the Wintersleep moved to Montreal, and Mike McNeil stayed here, and stayed in Halifax, and went finished his schooling and got a proper job and stuff. And but since we've been back, and since the pandemic, and actually my father's funeral, we had like it was like celebration of life, and he was a big, I said, big supporter, and he was a big fan of Contrived too. So he wanted us to play it, the celebration. So Contrived played it. So that was the first time that we'd gotten back together as Contrived in like 10 years at that time, and we haven't released any music in 15 years, which is crazy to think. But yeah, over the pandemic, everybody's kind of been based out, and so we've gotten back together, and we actually have just putting the finishing touches on a new record. Just it's just, I mean, it's just really, it's a lot of really strong songs, but it's also just like kind of just the the it's what we do as friends. My friend group is always, we always just kind of talk through music. So it's just nice to be kind of capture those moments, and there's just no excuse to not be working on stuff together, because we all love each other so much, and just love what we end up coming up with too. So yeah, so I think it's just all a really important thing for all of us to spend time doing when we can.
And is there a
Especially as we get by.
ballpark? Is there a ballpark ETA for the release of the Contrived album?
No, I mean, I like recorded it, and I'm mixing it too. So I'm just finishing up the last couple mixes. So yeah, I mean, I'd say within the next year, it'll be released in some capacity. I'm not sure what that will look like yet. But
That's exciting. So Contrived, there's 3 albums and an EP, but only the
yeah.
album blank 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 from 2008 is available on streaming services. Is that a conscious choice to only have that one?
No, it's not, because the other two were on Dependent Music, that label that I mentioned earlier that Brian was involved with, and I was involved with, and Judd. And we didn't keep up on that label. So as the transition went into like that, Dependent Music was pre Spotify, like pre streaming services. So there's physical copies of these albums, but we just never set them up online. So I think they're available on, like, you can find them on YouTube and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's something that maybe might like reissue on vinyl at some point or something. But Blank 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 was released by Hand Drawn Dracula, which is a label out of Toronto. Our friend James Magia record. So that's still like a functioning and current doing new releases. So they still have all their stuff's like online and stuff. So
And blank 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 is the album you would recommend people to go listen to anyways, right? So
yeah, I think that's the strongest record as far as like, yeah, I mean, I think we were all fairly, a lot of the earlier Contrived stuff is like, kind of rehearsing in public kind of situation, learning as you're going. But yeah, I think we were a bit more accomplished at the time of Blank Blank Blank. We recorded it right around the time of Welcome to the Sky record. We did it and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's more like the new stuff that we have come up with. So yeah, I would say check out Black Book.
So let's dive into what you're currently up to. There's two different things that you're up to. We'll dive into the first one. So let's talk Billy Talent here. And I just want to share my screen. So let me know if you can see this. Can you see this picture? Can you see that, Loel?
Joel, yeah, that's me.
Okay, you drumming. Okay, cool. So everyone can see this. So every year I put out a list of the best albums of the year. So this is a podcast episode. And one of the best albums that I heard in 2022 was Billy Talent's Crisis of Faith. So I had been a fan of Billy Talent since they got big in like 2003, but I had never seen them live. But I loved the new album so much that when I saw that Rise Against and Billy Talent were going to play at the TD Place in Ottawa, I bought tickets. And I get to the show, and I'm pretty far back, like not the greatest tickets. And Billy Talent's playing, and I know the drummer, Ratbeard, Jordan Hastings, and I look and I'm thinking, man, the drummer looks like Loel Campbell from Wintersleep. So remember, this is my favorite band. And I'm like, why does the drummer look like Loel Campbell? And I cannot compute because there's Wintersleep and there's Billy Talent. And then later on in the show, Ben says, hey, I'd like everyone to welcome our new friend Loel. And I'm like, holy shit, it's Loel Campbell from Wintersleep. So I had this pleasant surprise where I was seeing this awesome band, and I had, my drummer from my favorite band is in this band as well, which was pretty cool. So how did that opportunity present itself? So I guess to lay the foundation, Jordan Hastings, amazing drummer, plays for both Alexisonfire and Billy Talent. Alexisonfire during the pandemic, suddenly all the members, their schedules open up for the first time ever. They record and release their first album in like 13 years. Pandemic clears, you're now allowed to do shows again. So Alexisonfire goes on tour, and there's now basically for the first time a conflict between the Alexisonfire tour schedule and the Billy Talent tour schedule. And in comes Loel Campbell to save the day and keep the Billy Talent train running. How does that opportunity present itself?
Well, I mean, it worked out because we, at that time, I guess it was like, over a year and a half ago, because we were going to do some Wintersleep recordings, but that ended up not happening. And then I kind of realized that we were not going to be doing anything for a while. And at that time, I think it was in late September that my friend Matt Blakely, who actually tour managed us in Wintersleep before, he called me, and he just kind of out of the blue asked me if I'd be up for doing playing with Billy Talent. And it just kind of caught me off guard. It was like I wasn't expecting that. I was in touch with Matt over the pandemic a bit, and so I kind of needed to think about that. I did, it was a big because they're based in Toronto, and I've been out east for a while. And but anyways, I ended up having a nice meeting with them all, like on Zoom on this thing, and we had a great chat. We had a lot of similar kind of we just got along really well. Kind of similar kind of lots of things that lots of same bands came up and stuff that kind of inspired us. And Ian is a big fan of Dance Macabre and stuff. So they asked if I'd want to come up and try jamming a bit, and I went up in October, November, and I learned a handful of their tunes, and we just started. I just started playing, and it went really well right off the bat. So I was just like, they asked if I'd be up for doing the shows, and it's such a great experience. Like they play, they're headlining big places all over the world. Like my first show with them was in front of 10,000 people in Quebec City. So it was like, it was a bit nerve-wracking to say the least, but I don't know, they rehearse a lot, and we were really well prepared to go in and do a good show. So yeah, it's been great. They're like the sweetest people, really, really kind people. Um, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, the show I saw in Ottawa, I did a post about it and did kind of like a show review. And I was saying how impressed I was. So the sound was great. It looked great. Ben vocally sounded great and was very energetic and
Yeah,
captivating. Ian DeSaw on guitar, like all those tasty guitar riffs were perfect. His
oh,
backup
he's
vocals are
amazing.
like a master class in harmonies.
It's
Bass
crazy.
playing was super catchy. You on the drums was awesome. So I was like very, very impressed with Billy Talent live.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they're like Johnny is an amazing bass player. Ian is one of the most unique guitar players around. Like he's like sponged up all the his musical influences and created this whole new monster. And Ben is like an amazing singer. Yeah, they're all fantastic musicians and just like have really great hearts, and just like their work ethic is incredible. And it's just like it's not really, I don't think it's any sort of luck with that band. they just they've just always put in a lot of work into what they do, and there's a reason why they've achieved the success and the fans that they have.
And with their level of success, you guys are basically headlining most, if not all of these shows, which means your set is like probably an hour and a half. So that's a lot of music. What would you say is the most challenging Billy Talent song that you had to learn, and why?
Yeah, I think I've learned over 40 songs now. But yeah, the challenge most challenging, it's odd. There's some songs that all drummers are different, but some some just fit into my kind of mentality better than others. Like there's some of the earlier songs are actually kind of more challenging. Like This Is How It Goes is like it's just like bashing kind of relentless song, but with this like just with these skips, just so it's just something that I've never really kind of done before. So yeah, it just with these new things, because like with Aaron's parts or Jordan's parts, I'm just trying to play them part perfect, right? So I'm just really trying to get like, digest the drum parts completely and do as best as I can to replicate them. So some things are some things take longer than others. But it's funny. Like yeah, there's another song called Cannibal Rats, Ghost Rats, off Afraid of Heights. That's a really that's a Jordan played on that song. It's really challenging part. Yeah, I have a lot of fun playing those parts, and it's nice playing because I've always just written my own parts, and kind of been I haven't learned cover song like learned other people's parts since I was in like cover bands in high school. So it's been cool. You like when as you're learning or taking on the mindset of other drummers, you pick up new skills along the way. So it's been fun to pick up some new tricks along the way from Aaron and Jordan.
Do you have a favorite Billy Talent song to play live? So either it's, just a lot of fun to play a certain song, or maybe it's the crowd reaction is so amazing to a certain song. Any favorite song to play live?
Yeah, I mean, I always like playing the Devil in the Midnight Mass song. It's just like pretty. It's very much in my wheelhouse, and it's just like really urgent. Like it's kind of uh jumping on a horse that's running by you or something. It's it's really it's got this urgency when it starts that it's just like you're off on like a bullet train or something. Yeah, that Reckless Paradise is always fun. Surprise, surprise. Viking Death March is really fun to play. Um, yeah, Forgiveness, uh, River Below. That's such a fun tune to play. Um, yeah, no, it's been great to kind of adopt all these tunes of theirs and trying to like just you getting that connection to the songs. It's been a lot of fun.
Is it safe to assume that this would be the Billy Talent tour would be the biggest tour of your career? And what have the crowds been like? And has there been like a favorite place that you played
Yeah, yeah. No,
or
I mean,
place to visit?
yeah, I've never played in a band that's like, yeah, consistently headline shows like that. I mean, the shows in the summer were like the Rock and Park and Rock and Ring. Those are like, Billy Talent was headlining those, and there was 90,000 people there.
Wow.
So it's like opening for Paul McCartney here in Halifax. Playing early in the day. As people come in, it's like different. It's a different kind of thing than the headline. With a very kind of very rehearsed and pointed show. It's like it's very tight. It's like all the shows are really consistent and well, like it's almost like a play or something. The way how tight it is, the performances. So I've never done anything on that and yeah, I mean, all the shows are like like 10,000 people and playing arenas in Germany and throughout Europe. And yeah, it's wild. And the Canadian tour was wild too. But yeah, they have just such a amazing to I'm very honored that they trust me with that role.
So I'm gonna share my screen one last time. Let me know if you can see this. This is a picture of your beautiful drum kit for Billy Talent. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Jordan made that.
amazing. So um this is like a delicious looking drum
Birthday
kit
cake.
here. Yeah, birthday cake. And I have some words sent in from Jordan Goche from YC Drum Company. He's the one who manufactured this drum kit. He's the drum tech for a lot of amazing bands. He was the drum tech on this Billy Talent album in the studio. This is what Jordan Goche has to say. He says, Loel Campbell is one of Canada's greatest musical exports, if you ask me. And I know many others would say the same as well. A drummer I often talk to, a drummer I often talk about to anyone who will listen. Tasteful, while unique, and timeless drum parts over and over again. Each time I sit down with a pair of sticks, I will find myself straight up ripping Loel off. And I know there's countless drummers in this country that would say the exact same thing. Most importantly, though, he's a great friend of mine. I'm lucky. I'm lucky, like so many others, to have Loel as a friend. He always brings the good vibes right in whenever we end up hanging. So that's from Jordan Goche.
Oh, so sweet. He's so talented. I'm so lucky to have him as a friend too. Um, yeah, and he did an amazing job on that drum kit. It's a work of art. Um, I can't believe I'm playing a birthday cake drum kit.
It's very unique. It doesn't look
Yeah,
like
and
anything else.
yeah, it ties in with the Crisis of Faith artwork. It's so cool too, because that's the only thing. Like when you must remember being at that show. Like you go to the show and it's like there's no amps on stage. It's just the drum kit. Like the people with the guitar, like Ian with his guitar, Johnny with his bass, Ben with the microphone, and then the only thing on stage is the drum kit. So it's pretty cool. Jordan did such an amazing job on that. And I don't know, he's helped me out at times. Like the Broken Social Scene tour that I did in the fall, he gave me put together that whole drum kit for that too. And I I used one of the snares that he had built himself, a YC snare, and I got so many compliments on that snare drum, the way that sounded from just general people in attendance. And yeah, he's a special amazing to have somebody care deeply about their craft. It's just inspiring.
So Billy Talent announced more dates for May, June, and July. So to our listeners, if Billy Talent is playing in your city, go check them out. And let's dive into your new solo project. So this is called Early Works. What can you share about this to our listeners? What can they expect? What is this all about, this project?
It was like, I mean, I was kind of like, I've always been picking away at collecting, shaping an album on my own. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but it's something that you can't really force, especially when it's like a solo record. So yeah, I've gone through many different versions of this, but I would end up cherry picking songs from other sessions for like a Wintersleep song or something. And that kind of would disrupt the flow. But over the pandemic, I revisited a lot of stuff and re-recorded and wrote a lot of new stuff. And I finally finished a record. So yeah, I'll probably start trickling out some tracks from that. I don't know like if I'll play many shows or anything like that, but it's very much a finished album now. So I'm just gonna share it in some capacity. And yeah, I think it'll just be fun to have a avenue for my own songwriting and production stuff. Because it's just that's my constant. Whenever I get time, I just get right back into creating stuff on my own. So it'll be nice to share it eventually.
Awesome. So we have one final comment sent in. So this is from drummer Rich Bedeau of Finger 11, Saint Asonia, and he always provides like the longest best quote. So just hang with me here. I'll read through this. He says, Loel, actually, just let me set this up right here. Okay, cool. So he says, Loel is an absolute monster drummer and a hell of a wonderful human. It's been amazing to listen to him over the years, keep growing and expanding musically. He and his bandmates have created some of the most special music this country has ever heard. In my heart, Wintersleep are one of the best bands in Canadian history. To see him now doing drum duties with the Billy Talent guys as well makes me so happy, and I couldn't think of a better man for the spot. I just did a few festivals with him over in Europe when I was filling in with Chris Daughtry, but didn't get a chance to say hello. But you can bet I was watching him during the show and absolutely on cloud nine with joy. Hope we get to hang more in the future, Loel. I'm so proud of you, and I'm your biggest fan, brother. From Rich Bedeau, Finger 11, Saint Asonia.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you, Rich. Wow. Yeah, I heard that he was over there because he knows the BT guys. And yeah, we didn't get to cross paths, but that's amazing. Yeah, hopefully I'll get to see more of him. Get to yeah, get to know each other a bit more. That's
So,
wonderful. Thanks,
yeah.
Rich. That means a lot.
Yeah, Rich is the man. So as we wrap up, just a few more questions. When you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of and what are you most grateful for?
I mean, I'm grateful to be doing this at all, I guess. Yeah, I think it's a pretty rare thing when you can do what you love and still kind of keep getting more and more from it. I mean, I never stop learning. I keep every tour I do, especially with doing, even the tours I did last year, Broken Social Scene, like musically, I was learning stuff from them, and with Billy Talent, learning stuff musically, and then just on like the scheme of like how production goes, and just how shows of that size operate. It's just like it's amazing. It's like so I feel so lucky to be able to like for a living. It's absolutely a dream come true.
Now, there's a thing that we do on the podcast where I have the current guests provide a question for the podcast that I'm going to ask the next guest. So without the person knowing who's coming up next, male or female, age, what industry they're in, they'll provide a question. It can be funny or memorable or inspiring. So I have a question for you from the last guest. So this is from Ricky Pocket of the Sheepdogs. Without knowing who he didn't know you would be the next guest. His question is, if you could take a year off to travel, where would you go and why?
Nice. I think I've always wanted to go to Vietnam, actually, because I'm a big fan of their cuisine. So I'd love to go there. I've been fortunate to be a lot of cool places, but yeah, I would love to go to Vietnam and South America. I've never really been to very much. Yeah, somewhere to avoid winter would be great. So I mean I love Canada and Nova Scotia in the summer and stuff.
In the summer,
Always
that's
nice to do.
very important.
Yeah.
In the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents went to Vietnam and they loved it, so that's
Oh,
probably a good
really?
choice. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to go there. That's like just one of the, and yeah, that's just been on my list. I've,
Yeah, they said the food was great, the people were amazing, and the price is right. I guess with the currency exchange, that it's not too expensive once you get
yeah,
there.
no doubt. Yeah, I'd love to go back to more. I'd love to visit more places in Africa. I've gotten to travel over there to, well, to Ethiopia. It's like such a big continent, obviously, but I'd love to go traveling there some more. So yeah,
Now
hopefully
to
that's
to
in the
to
future.
keep the chain going with questions for the next guest, it's putting
Yeah.
you on the spot, but is there any question you can ask without knowing who the next guest, and I will ask them? Anything just come to mind.
Oh,
Could be anything.
yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking. I don't know. What's your favorite plant?
There you go. I'm gonna ask that just because it's something unique.
I'm just
Fig.
literally looking at the plants here.
That's all good. Favorite plant. I hope I get like a botanist or something next.
Yeah.
That would be that would be a good setup. As we wrap up here, if you could go back in time and you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you
Yeah.
could share some words of advice to help cute little Loel navigate this life. You have a lifetime now of experience, of highs and lows and dreams and mentorship and lessons and experience. What advice do you give little 10-year-old Loel sitting there looking to you for guidance?
As as far as life stuff goes, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, just I mean, actually, I don't have many regrets as far as life stuff goes. But if it could be musical advice, I would say to learn how to play to a click track as soon as possible.
It's important when you get into the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say do that soon, sooner than later. But yeah, I don't know, life stuff. Yeah, just, I don't know. That I think I've done a pretty good job with general life admin. So
There you go. A
click
man with
track.
no regrets, but yeah, get on that click track. Is there
Yeah.
anything you'd like to say to your fans, people that have been with you from the start for Wintersleep, with Contrived, with Billy Talent Now Live, with the early work stuff, to the fans that have been with you this whole time? Anything you'd like to say to them before we wrap up?
Just thanks so much. I mean, it means everything to have support in what you do. But in a public, when you do something public, it's just nice to get that reciprocation. That it's been amazing. Like even at Billy Talent shows, like like I had a couple signs of people, like I think they knew that I was playing from Wintersleep or whatever, and people came and asked for sticks or whatever with signs, and that just blew my mind because I mean I'm just trying to do the best job that I can do, but to see that people recognize that just means the world. I mean, and to know and to think that people are following along. It's just like that's just thank you so much for caring. It's gives us creative types a lot of wind for the next thing.
So for our listeners that have stuck with us for the last 2+ hours, if they want to stay in the loop with what you're up to online, if they want to reach out and say, hey, I love your music, or I love the interview, or they want to work
Right.
with you in the future, where do people go? Is there a website? Is there social media?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a lowcampbell.com, but it hasn't been updated in quite a while. I would say just go to my Instagram. It's just Lowell, Loel Campbell. That's my Instagram. That's what I primarily use. I haven't posted in a while, but as I gear up to release some contrived stuff and early work stuff, I'll start posting more often. And if I'm on tour, I'll like put a video of myself playing drums for sound check or something like that. I'm always like sharing kind of highlights from tours and stuff like that. So Instagram, I'm an Instagram fellow. Yeah. So go there.
There we go. So as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a drummer. I want to say thank you for writing, recording, releasing two of my all-time favorite albums. Like, your music is the soundtrack to my life. You know, Wintersleep's seven album discography, it's like 5 hours and something worth of music. That music means a lot to me. I want to say thank you for being sweet and supportive at Zaphod's when I met you. You know, again, you changed the stereotype of you know, maybe not wanting to meet the heroes. You change that, where there are good people out there and it's okay to meet them. I want to acknowledge you for stepping in with Billy Talent and keeping that train rolling. You know, all the Billy Talent fans, hey, if you're not available and other people aren't available, maybe there's no tour in support of what I believe is one of the best albums released in 2022 in Crisis of Faith. And last but not least, I want to thank you for this interview. Again, as a super fan going back to like 2004, these are questions that I've wanted to know the answers to, and it means a lot. And I again, when I started the podcast, I had the list of dream guests, and I had Wintersleep at the very top. So this means a lot. So thank you, Loel.
Oh, you're so welcome, Joel. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for caring about all this stuff we've been doing. It means a lot. And did you know that we have the same guy that mastered the first Rage Against the Machine record, mastered that Wintersleep record?
I did not know that. Who is that?
Roger Liam. Yeah, same mastering engineer.
Pretty cool, this guy has mastered two of my three favorite albums of all time. I got to see who mastered the Pink Floyd album at the off. This guy might not have even been born back then, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how. I mean, yeah, I don't know, but he did a great job of those records.
There you go. There's something I did not know. So to the listeners of the podcast, to the Loel fans, to the Contrive fans, to the Wintersleep fans, to the Billy Talent fans, to the future Early Works fans, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What I want to know is, who would you like me to sit down with next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know by reaching out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel. And you can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.